214 call. I'll now turn it over to Danny Brunner.
Thank you, operator, and thank you all to the media for joining us today on today's Bellator 214 conference call, where we will hear from Bellator light heavyweight champion Ryan Bader, Fedor Emelianenko, Jake Hager, and JW Kaiser. If you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad now. We are just 11 days out from the Heavyweight World Grand Prix finale now, as it all goes down Saturday, January 26th at the Forum in Los Angeles. The event airs live and free on the Paramount Network and is streaming on DAZN. With that, we can open it up for the first question.
If you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. That's star and the number 1. Our first question comes from the line of Steve Juan with MMA Mania.
Thank you, operator. I have a question for each fighter on the line, and I'd like to start with Jake Hager. You had a very successful career at the University of Oklahoma before you got into professional wrestling, and now, 13 years later, you're entering the world of mixed martial arts. Why is now the time for you to compete in MMA?
Thank you for asking me that. I think right now, if you look at MMA, it's at a peak popularity, and with my background in professional wrestling, it is also at its height of popularity, even high our ages of the 1980s. So I think for me as an athlete, as a sports brand, it makes sense to try to cross over into another industry because it's only going to make me a better pro wrestler, and being a pro wrestler is only going to make me a better MMA fighter.
Very good. And to your opponent, JW Kaiser, how do you feel about Jake entering into the world of mixed martial arts and your fight with him at Bellator 214?
First off, I want to say thanks to Steve Coker, Bellator MMA. I want to say thanks to Jake Hager, too, for taking the fight. It's a huge opportunity for me. As far as answering the question goes, I think it's an awesome thing. And the more popularity we can bring to MMA is the better, and the higher names. I mean, the bigger names, the bigger athletes we can get involved in the sport, just keeps it growing. I love Jake. I'm a fan of Mr. Hager. You know, I can't wait to get in the octagon with him and bang it out. Yeah, I've watched him wrestle. It's an honor to be a part of such a big event, and to be a part of his debut as a MMA fighter too.
Excellent. And as far as big events go, it gets no bigger than the finale of the Heavyweight Grand Prix. So to the light heavyweight champion, Ryan Bader, how excited are you and how prepared are you to face Fedor in the finals?
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome experience, this whole Grand Prix, having a light heavyweight belt and getting asked to come into this Grand Prix. And then, winning these 2 fights and let alone, fighting for the heavyweight championship and potentially winning 2 belts. I get to finish it off with fighting one of the greatest of all times in Fedor. So this tournament's been great. I never really had a time in my career where I've known my opponents before, that fight right in front of you. So, I knew I was fighting Mitrione. Then I knew I was fighting, the winner of H.E.A.T and Fedor. And so it's been an easy goals to see, in front of me as far as like putting the work into training as, you take a fight or whatnot and you kind of fall off for a month or so because you don't have that name, you don't have that date yet. So I've been motivated throughout this whole process and best shape of my life, feeling great. Perfect time for the heavyweight championship fight.
Finally, for the last emperor, Fedor Emelianenko, we saw in Bader's fight with Matt Mitrione his ability to neutralize a larger opponent and avoid taking any damage. How do you plan to counter that here in the finals of the Grand Prix?
Федор, у него вопрос, что мы видели в предыдущих боях Райан Бейдера, что он очень хорошо умеет нейтрализовать больших соперников, как Миtrione, размером больших, и одновременно не получать очень много ударов. Как ты думаешь, ты будешь с этим справляться во время боя? Спасибо за вопрос. Да, Райан Бейдер очень грамотный боец, наверное, один из самых умных в этом гран-при, я имею в виду умных бойцов. То есть он очень грамотно ведет свой поединок. Вот. Ну, что будет в бою, посмотрим. Я понимаю, что он очень хороший борец, и очень сложно по нему попасть. То есть он очень много уделяет внимания защите своей. Вот. Ну, посмотрим, как сложится бой.
So, he said Ryan Bader is, an exceptional fighter, probably one of the most toughest and skilled guys in this tournament. He knows that he has a very, strong wrestling background, but he also knows that it's not easy to hit Ryan. He's got very good defense, and he's very aware of making sure he doesn't get hit. The rest, we'll have to see in a fight.
Very good. Gentlemen, thank you all. We look forward to Bellator 214 on the 26th.
Okay, our next question comes from the line of Damon Martin with Flowcombat.com.
Hey guys, first question for Jake Hager. Jake, I know as you've been preparing for your Bellator debut, you have been doing some independent dates on the wrestling scene. How have you managed to balance that as you get ready for a fight, and also, continuing to do the pro wrestling stuff on the side?
Yeah, it's been kind of a work in progress. When I left WWE in April of 2017, I knew I had a lot of meat on the table to capitalize on as far as in the independent wrestling world. So at that point, it was the main focus. And then slowly, as we got closer to being ready to step into the cage, the focus, shifts more into the MMA aspect side of it. I think it's been a really cool journey. I definitely would have been ready sooner if I wasn't wrestling on the weekends, but unfortunately, I have to make my income the way I can, and that was a big part of it, to capitalize on my TV exposure and continue on professional wrestling and entertaining, and at the same time, I think it will help me with my MMA career, and so it's almost like practice a little bit too.
Yeah. A lot of people like to talk about other professional wrestlers who have come into MMA, but you're your own guy. But I guess the one comparison I might make is a guy like Bobby Lashley, who was a great, had a very bright future in fighting, but obviously he had a lot of pull in the pro wrestling world. I guess my question is, have you seen this new promotion start as All Elite Wrestling? And do you think that, a promotion like that would draw you away from fighting, or are you dedicated to fighting now? Or how are you going to do that going forward, especially if a great offer comes in, from a pro wrestling organization?
Well, first I have to say that Bellator has been absolutely amazing to work with. I think you see that with a lot of fighters gravitating towards this promotion because of the way they treat their talent and how they put on their promotion. I'm already signed with a great organization. As far as AEW and what those guys are doing, I think it's awesome. I think they're changing the landscape of professional wrestling, providing competition for the big dog where they haven't had competition in over 20 years. It's only going to make things better for professional wrestlers when promotions like AEW emerge and are successful.
And last one for you, Jake. You've seen, the attention that's paid on fighters coming in for their first fight. It's impossible to ignore that. You're on the main card of one of the biggest Bellator cards of the year. How are you handling that spotlight, considering, at the end of the day, this is still your first fight?
Yeah. I understand that a lot of people are not going to like that I get to be on this card, and then even more people are not going to like what I get paid for being on this card. But that's not my problem. I belong here. Enough said.
Awesome. And a couple of questions for Fedor. First one for Fedor. You participated in some of the most famous Grand Prix in mixed martial arts history in Pride. How would you compare the level of competition you faced in Bellator versus what you faced in those days in Pride?
Федор, ты сражался в одних из самых знаменитых гран-при во время своей карьеры. как ты можешь сравнить уровень бойцов в этом Bellator Гран-при по сравнению с тем, с которыми в которых ты участвовал до этого?
Ну, в этом Гран-при, конечно, собраны очень хорошие бойцы. Именитые и бойцы из первой десятки. Поэтому я очень высоко ценю это Гран-при. Очень высоко ценю Гран-при. И для меня очень важно, да, очень важно в нем выступать. Вот, и я рад выступать с такими бойцами, как Райан Бейдер. Вот. Мэтт Мэттриан там и так далее.
He said, he feels like this Grand Prix is right up there with the ones that he's fought in. It has a lot of famous fighters, a lot of great fighters, a lot of top 10 fighters. So, he's very excited to be a part of it. He's ready to compete in it, against the likes of Ryan Bader and Matt Mitrione and Frank Mir and so on. So, it's right up there with all the ones he's been a part of.
And last question for Fedor. Obviously, Fedor, you've been a champion so much of your career. At this stage of your career, what would it mean to you to become Bellator heavyweight champion?
Федор, ты, конечно, уже был чемпионом во время своей карьеры. В этом этапе своей карьеры, что для тебя значит стать чемпионом Bellator в тяжелом весе?
Очень много значит, очень много значит. Конечно, я выступаю за свою страну, во славу Божию. Вот, поэтому я, конечно, буду выкладываться на все 100%. Для меня очень многое значит ближайший бой. К тому же я единственный русский, кто участвовал в этом Гран-при.
It means a lot. It means everything. This Grand Prix is very important. I'm fighting for my country. I'm fighting for, not fighting for God, but I'm fighting with God on my mind. And I'm also the only Russian fighter in this Grand Prix. So it means everything for me to win it and to participate in it. And I'm going to give it 100%.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Our next question comes from the line of Dan Roush with Men's Fitness Magazine.
Hey, I just wanted to ask Fedor Emelianenko, how does it feel to be fighting in a Scott Coker promotion? And after all, Scott Coker is the beginning of kind of a new era in your career, as it is. What does it feel now to be fighting in Bellator after having the greatest of all time?
Sorry, I didn't hear a word of that because it was cutting in and out. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Fedor, how does it feel to be fighting at this point in his career? How much longer is he going to go? Why is he fighting? Why Bellator? Why now?
Got it. Федя, он хочет спросить, на этом этапе своей карьеры, почему ты продолжаешь биться, продолжаешь вступать в эти гран-при? Почему сейчас и почему именно в Беллаторе?
Я очень благодарен Скотту Кокеру за то, что он включил меня в Гран-при. Это человек слова. Во-первых, мне всегда очень приятно было с ним работать. Все годы, которые мы раньше работали, и сейчас это человек слова. Это не человек, который пускает свои слова на ветер. Вот, это первое. Почему я выступаю? Я выступаю за свою страну, я выступаю, представляя свою веру. Вот. Мне кажется, больше мотивации и причин не должно быть.
I'd like to, first of all, he wants to thank Scott for including him in this Grand Prix. He's always been a man of his word. It's always been a pleasure to fight for him in the past in Strikeforce and now here in Bellator. He's not the kind of guy who makes empty promises. As far as what motivates him to fight, he fights for his country. He fights for his beliefs, and he feels like, what more do you need? What more motivation do you need than that?
Well, he's a great warrior, but he's been knocked out a lot recently, and it's obviously hurting physically, mentally. When does it come to an end? And as being somebody who's been considered the greatest of all time, why is he really fighting now, and when does it come to an end? What is he fighting for?
Федор, у тебя были несколько поражений.
Извините, связь прервалась.
Sorry, the connection is lost.
Does it like your question?
I have lost my Fedor.
Fedor.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, operator, we can go to the next question.
Our next question comes from the line of Brandy Sipke with MMA Takeover.
Hey, this question is for Ryan. Ryan, back in October, you said you wanted to defend both the light heavyweight and heavyweight belt should you win it. Is that still the plan?
Yeah, we're kind of cross that bridge when it comes. I got this fight in front of me, so I don't like to look too far ahead. But I will be holding both titles. And I don't feel like there's a clear-cut 205-pounder contender out there. There's a couple in the mix, but I don't think really one's separated himself from the rest of the pack there. So I don't believe there needs to be, an interim belt or anything like that right away. So it really, we'll see. I have to go out there and I have to win this fight to have two belts. And so that's my focus right now. I haven't thought too much of it. Yeah, in the perfect world, I'd want to go and defend both and keep them. But, we'll cross that bridge when it happens and then kind of go from there.
Great, thanks.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm back. I'm here. I'm Fedor.
Okay, Fedor is back.
Thank you, Fedor. Fedor is returned.
Okay, I have a question for Fedor. Fedor, you said after your last fight you'd requested not to fight Russian opponents. With Vitaly Minakov fighting for the number one contender spot, is there a chance you two would fight should you both win your next bouts?
Федя, ты сказал до этого, что твое желание не сражаться с оппонентами из России, но вот сейчас в феврале Виталий Минаков будет сражаться на претендента номер один на тяжелый вес. Если ты выиграешь Гран-при и станешь чемпионом, то как бы неизбежно будет тебе с ним биться. Это проблема для тебя?
Сначала нужно победить Гран-при, а потом уже строить планы. Вот. Я так думаю.
He said, well, for now, I'm just focused on trying to win this Grand Prix, and then we can deal with the rest afterwards. I don't want to think too far ahead because, I have a tough opponent in front of me.
Okay, great. Thanks. And a quick question for Jake. We know you come from a collegiate wrestling background. What do you think will surprise fans most about your game when you enter the cage?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, we know you come from a collegiate wrestling background. So what do you think will surprise fans the most about your game when you enter the cage?
Yeah, great question. When you look at wrestlers entering the cage, they have great takedowns, that they use the cage, and their conditioning is usually above par. I think what will surprise a lot of people is how hard I hit and how fast I am for a heavyweight.
Cool, great. Thank you, everyone.
Our next question comes from the line of Eddie Goldman with No Holds Barred.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. First question for Ryan. Ryan, when Fedor was on that amazing 10-year undefeated streak and in his peak, it was around the time that you were still wrestling at Arizona State, becoming an All-American. Did you ever imagine then that you would be going into MMA and eventually facing Fedor?
I started thinking about kind of getting into MMA around my senior year. Wrestling, it's a grind, and making weight and we started kind of messing around a little bit too when it was time to cut weight instead of just drilling wrestling because we did that day in and day out, you know. And I had a bunch of guys that ended up going to MMA, like Cain Velasquez, Steve Galloway, Aaron Simpson, you know, and started messing around a little bit. And I definitely watched Fedor coming up, but I never really thought that we would cross paths, to be honest. You know, it was different promotions at the time. You know, K.A.T was a far off place in my mind, you know, in time, and I just didn't think we'd kind of cross paths at all. And so, you know, when this tournament came about, you know, we said yes, and we didn't really know who was in it. And then the tournament started filling out a little bit, and you start seeing the legends of the sport start popping up, you know. And then we heard Fedor was in it. You know, and my plan obviously is win the fight in front of me, and I kept doing that. And the ultimate, you know, the cherry on the top would be fighting in the finals for the heavyweight championship in a Grand Prix style tournament, and also facing one of the greatest of all time in Fedor. And so I've said it in interviews before this whole thing started. That's who I wanted to face in the finale. And I just think it just puts a stamp on it, you know. And I don't think it would have been as sweet if it would have been, you know, full fivers, you know, Chael in the finals. You know, I wanted it to be Fedor. I wanted it to be a true heavyweight, you know, let alone he's one of the greatest of all time. So I didn't, to be honest, but I'm glad we're sitting here a week and a half out and fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world.
Ryan, do you expect this fight to be more wrestling and grappling or stand-up? What do you foresee from your standpoint is the best mix of that?
Man, I don't know. It's one of those things where I quit doing that earlier in my career. I try to game plan so much. I try to rehearse it in my head so much that, you know, if anything deviated from what I had in my head, you know, it put you down the wrong path. And so I'm just kind of open. Wherever that fight goes, I'm going to be fine. You know, I've been in there a ton. I've been in there with tons of different styles and all that kind of stuff. And you know, I can adapt to everything. I can fight entirely on the feet. I can mix it up, you know, fight on the ground, obviously. But, you know, I'm going to go in there and use my attributes, mix them all up, you know, keep them guessing and use what I do well, you know. And it's just one of those things you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You know, we've seen it in King Mo, went out there, hit him with one punch, he went down. With Matt, you know, I kind of came with a wrestling, grappling, heavy style to kind of neutralize his length and his reach and, you know, his power. And so, yeah, we have a game plan, but, you know, it's a fight, so you never know.
And a question for Fedor, what do you expect in this fight in terms of the mix of grappling and wrestling and stand-up and striking? What would you think would be the best mix for you?
Are you asking what do you expect out of Ryan Bader or himself?
No, of himself. What he would like. Would it be more standing or grappling, or how much of each?
Got it. Федя, как ты видишь бой со своей стороны? Тебе больше подходило бы, если в стойке проходил бы бой, или в партере, или тебе все равно? Со своей стороны.
Да нет, на самом деле, я думаю, все равно. И лежа очень много внимания уделяли борьбе, стоя спаррингом, поэтому я думаю, посмотрим, как будет бой. Мне, в принципе, все равно, что стоя, что лежа.
Okay. Pretty much the same as Ryan. You know, he's been training in both the stand-up and the ground, and wherever the fight goes, then that's where it goes. He doesn't really care either way.
Our next question comes from the line of Gareth A. Davies.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night, everyone. I'm sorry that I'm out of breath. I'm running through the streets of London looking for gold. First question for Mr. Scott Coker. Scott,
Gareth,
what would it mean?
Gareth, Scott Coker's not on the line. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So it was about Fedor. Good afternoon, Fedor. Could I just ask what it would mean to you at this age, at this stage in your career, to win on January the 26th at the Forum against a very live opponent in Ryan Bader? What it would mean Would it be one of the greatest accomplishments of your career?
Федор, он хочет спросить, на этом этапе твоей карьеры, что для тебя значит выиграть этот гран-при, особенно против такого сильного соперника, как Райан Бейдер? Ты думаешь, это будет одно из самых великих достижений твоей карьеры?
Да, я думаю, что это одно из самых больших будет достижений карьеры, если Бог даст выиграть этот гран-при. Потому что Райан, конечно, очень серьезный соперник, очень прошел достойных бойцов, сильнейших бойцов, поэтому для меня это будет, если Бог даст победить, для меня это будет большое событие.
Yeah, this would definitely be, a huge accomplishment for me in my career, especially because of the opponent. Ryan is an exceptional fighter. He's beaten some really tough guys to get to the final. So for him to win the Grand Prix would be a huge accomplishment.
Thank you, Fedor. And maybe I could ask Ryan. Danny, is Ryan on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. Ryan, in the same breath, would a victory over Fedor for you, when you see what the man's accomplished, how respected he is by fans, fighters, promoters, everyone in the industry, would this be the biggest accomplishment of your life, to go out of that arena at the Forum in Inglewood on January the 26th with your arms raised?
Yeah, for sure. I try not to let that get in my head at all, because as a fighter, every fight that you have in front of you is your biggest fight, even if it's just a regular old fight. You don't want to lose and take that one step back to your ultimate goal, but I'm finally here as far as I kept my head down. I've won these fights I've had to win. I captured the light heavyweight belt. I entered a heavyweight tournament, and I beat King Mo pretty quickly. And then I fought and beat, one of the guys that more than likely, if the tournament wasn't happening, he'd be fighting for the heavyweight championship. It's Matt Mitrione, and he was undefeated in Bellator. I took him out, and now I'm standing across from Fedor in the finals. And so, but like I was saying earlier, it's just everything just kind of came to fruition, and it's the perfect time. This is who I wanted to fight in the finals. I didn't want to fight. I would and go out there, no problem, fight Chael if he would have won. But I just feel like this kind of cements it a little more so, and cements my legacy going out there beating Fedor. And he's obviously earned all that respect and one of the greatest of all times. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as my career, this is the biggest moment, having being a 2-division champion and beating one of the greatest of all times.
Thank you, Ryan. And finally, one question for the Swagger Man. Obviously it's fantastic when such a big character with an amazing name, who has so many social media followers, who's clearly a star in another realm of combat sports, and combat sports entertainment, comes across to mixed martial arts. How seriously are you taking this? Is it putting your toes in the water? Obviously WWE is a huge sport in a different realm. I mean, how seriously, are you after the belts? Do you want to be the champion? Do you want to be fighting the Baders and the Fedors of this world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to be in the finals of a heavyweight Grand Prix. I think anybody who enters into MMA and is serious about it. If you look, I left a giant company making hundreds of thousands of dollars for a chance to cross over into another industry. So big investment on myself and a huge risk as far as career goes. This is very serious for me. This is life, and nobody loves cash more than I do, and I want more of it. I don't need it all. I just need a lot.
Your next question comes from the line of Igor Lazarin.
Yeah, hi there. I will ask Fedor Emelianenko in Russian. Добрый день, Федор. У меня вопрос такой: как вы оцениваете свой уровень подготовки к поединку с Бейдером? И И ставите ли вы задачу досрочно победить его и не тянуть все 5 раундов? Спасибо.
Спасибо. Ну, подготовка прошла хорошо, но уровень подготовки можно судить только во время боя или после него. Вот, но все, слава богу, прошло хорошо. Вот. Что касается досрочной победы, я всегда хочу досрочно победить, а там уже как Бог дает. Конечно, хочется победить раньше, вот, и не затягивать бой. Вот, но готовимся всегда, конечно, на полный бой, чтобы еще остались силы после боя.
То есть вы допускаете, что вы еще после этого поединка будете выступать?
Посмотрим, как будет. Надо сначала биться.
Благодарю.
Спасибо.
So the question was, how does he feel about his training, and does he want the fight to end quickly and not drag on for 5 rounds? And so training was great. He feels prepared. As far as the fight, of course, every fighter wants the fight to end as quickly as possible, but we'll see what happens in the fight.
Our next question comes from the line of Jaewon Paik.
Hi, Jake. First question is for Jake. Jake, with your experience competing at the highest level possible in the sport, has that made the preparation for your debut a lot easier in terms of dealing with critics and expectations?
You know what? I've been wrestling since I was 5 years old, so absolutely I am relying on that training and that background to help me prepare for this. I had never seen professional wrestling before I started training to become a professional wrestler. I haven't had an MMA fight, but I don't think that deters me from becoming a professional MMA fighter. So I think the bright lights and the experience in the entertainment industry has actually helped me and is a huge advantage of mine and will continue to be in my career as an MMA fighter.
And I know in the past you said that you were completely different than CM Punk entering the sport, but has watching him go through the journey in the UFC did influence you in a way to enter the sport as well, or was it just a completely independent decision?
Completely independent. I first got the bug about the same time Ryan did. We were both in college at the same time, so our junior and senior years. My teammates at Oklahoma started delving into it. And then back in 2013, an ex-teammate of mine named Matt Grice was fighting for the UFC in Tampa, where I live. And we went to the fight, and from then on, I had the bug, and it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when I crossed over into the MMA world.
Got it. Thank you. And one last one for you. When you were looking to get into MMA, was this what you were looking for? Were you looking to jump into the highest level right away, or was it just the opportunity that was presented and you couldn't refuse it?
You know what? With my background, I was looking to go to the highest level. I want to compete. I want to be tested, and this is where that's going to happen. And Bellator has been great to work with. They have accommodated my independent pro wrestling schedule and training very well, and have really helped me, as far as the training goes, to prepare for this and to allow me to wait till I know I'm ready, which is now.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, Jake. And just a couple for Ryan. Throughout your career, you have been in there with some of the best fighters in the world, but what would mean more to you, beating Fedor or winning that second belt?
Well, they kind of coincide here. It was just a perfect storm that I happened to be facing him in the finals. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to win 2 belts. I got the light heavyweight belt, entered this tournament, kept my head down, and got through it. Now I'm facing Fedor. So it's a perfect storm for both. I get to win that heavyweight championship, and I get to be one of the greatest to do it. So that combination of both is really, motivating me. It was a goal from the beginning when I saw he was on the other side of the bracket, hoping he would get there, and here we are.
And you said that there's a real clear contender in the lightweight division, or light heavyweight division, I'm sorry. And recently, Lyoto Machida did sign for Bellator, and you guys do have a little bit of a history. Now, that was way back in your career, but is that a fight you would like to run back at, any time in the future?
Yeah, hell yeah. He's one of those, not good highlights for me when, they're showing him, and I'm rushing in, getting knocked out. I had no idea what the hell I was doing back then, striking-wise, but, and I can't even remember how many years that was, but I definitely would like to get that back. And it's a big fight, and I'm looking to get into these big fights. I have one in front of me here. We'll see what happens and kind of see where we go from here. But that's a fight I definitely want.
Next question comes from the line of Steven Morocco. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad.
Hey, Ryan. Speaking of fights that you want, do you have a list or any sort of idea of free agents you'd like Bellator to sign?
Man, I haven't really thought too much about it. I don't feel the UFC's light heavyweight division is very, very deep at all. I think there's a handful of guys, they keep kind of regurgitating guys fighting for the belt and whatnot. So there's really not too many to pull from there. Yeah, there's always guys out there floating around, but I haven't really even thought about it too much. Bellator is doing a great job at attracting these guys, these high-level guys, and that's going to come, with just a little bit of time. And the word is getting out. We're treated well over here. We have opportunities. For example, being able to fight in this Grand Prix. We saw Darion Caldwell go out and fight in Japan and all that kind of good stuff. And so that's attractive to us. And you're going to see more guys kind of coming over, and that'll fill out the ranks.
When you observe fighters sort of on the outs, or take a dip in their career, or other circumstances that perhaps make them more likely to defect, is that something you hope for as a competitor, to see them migrate over to Bellator so you can be able to face them, have that sort of competition?
Not exactly. I'm kind of just doing my own thing. There's always guys to fight, and there's always tough guys in front of you. And so I don't think too much about that. One thing is, definitely a goal for the company is to keep growing, and attracting those higher level names will help that and help you get more eyeballs at these fights, and up Bellator brand, which ups your brand, that whole thing. And so, and as a competitor, want to compete against the best, but like I said, there's no shortage of tough guys in front of me. I'm fighting, the pinnacle right now. I'm fighting Fedor for the heavyweight championship of the world. So pretty occupied thinking about that, and then, and then being a 2-division champion, that's the pinnacle of the sport right there, and everything after that is kind of gravy. It's just fun, and so I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to going out there, competing against Fedor, getting that second belt, and then just being free and fighting wherever and fighting these big fights.
I think I've asked you this before, but maybe your answer will be different now that you've had a chance to go through this tournament. Do you have any idea of what the balance is going to be between you fighting at light heavyweight and you being at the heavyweight?
Yeah, no idea yet. We haven't really got into it yet. At the beginning, I kind of said I wanted to defend both belts. We'll see, though. We'll see. I gotta win both belts first. So if I do go out there and do that, and it's one of those things that we get with Bellator, we get a game plan going. What's best for us? What's best for them? And kind of go forward from there. It's got to make sense for me, and I got to be incentivized to stay here and fight big old boys all the time. So yeah, we'll get with Bellator and we'll kind of go from there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Sasha Mox.
Hi, everyone. First question would be to Jake, a.k.a. Jack Swagger. First question, man, is what made you choose to pursue mixed martial arts after such an illustrious WWE career?
Opportunity. The opportunity to make money for my family, and the opportunity to cross-promote, and the opportunity to expand the Jack Swagger brand, Jake Hager brand. I've been wrestling since I was 5 years old. I relate a lot of MMA to that same love I have for wrestling. I'm the type of guy that just needs to compete, and I think it was obvious in my departure from the WWE that it was just time for me to leave and go on to the next venture in my life. But I mean, simple answer is I'm here to make money.
Perfect. Now, Jack, you're making your debut at the age of 36, but you've competed your whole life. You wrestled when you were 5, you competed in WWE. Do you think your age is a factor at this stage continuing or starting your mixed martial arts career?
Maybe 10 years ago it would have been a factor, but I think the advances in technology and sports nutrition and science has come a long way in that 10 years. So it's just a matter of being smart, having a high fight intelligence, have a high training intelligence, and having great guys around you that understand what type of fighter you are and how you need to train and prepare. If that means not going so hard on some days to get a little bit more recovery, or that might also mean push it a little bit further when you're tired because you need it because of the age. Either way, I think there's so much advances in sports nutrition that it really neutralizes the playing ground for older fighters. Yes, I'm late to the party, but you're going to find out that I am the party.
Better late than never. My last question is, obviously there's been previous WWE superstars who've made a transition into MMA, but one that obviously stands out is Brock Lesnar. Now, besides the similarity between you both having prestigious wrestling backgrounds, do you draw any other similarities between yourself and Brock Lesnar?
We both have big teeth and no necks. Is that a similarity?
That's a perfect one.
I mean, what Brock did was incredible. He raised the bar to new heights, to something that a lot of people didn't think would ever happen, have entertainers cross over into this highly competitive, highly physical industry. It's the toughest sport in the world, bar none. Before I started training for MMA, I was like, I've wrestled all my life. I know how to train hard. No. MMA training is way harder than wrestling, and it has proven that over the last year and a half. If I can make some comparisons to myself and Brock, I would say very similar wrestling. He might have an edge on that, but I think my hands are better.
Our last question comes from the line of Randall Folks.
Yeah, my question is for Ryan Bader. Ryan, I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what would becoming Bellator's first simultaneous two-division champ mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a lifetime of work, coming to a head there. I've been wrestling since I was 7 years old, on the kind of year-round circuit. I played football. I was a good football player also, but wrestling was kind of that main sport, and wrestled all the way through college, a couple time All-American, and then I thought I wanted to be done being an athlete, so I took a couple months off and then immediately missed it. I missed that competing. I missed that fire. I missed that having that goal and working towards something, and so got into MMA, and it doesn't get any bigger than this moment. And like I said on some other questions, it would have been different if I was fighting, like a Chael Sonnen or something like that in the finals. This is just, it was a perfect storm. It's a true heavyweight, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. I'm going for a second belt, fighting in a Grand Prix style tournament, which Fedor kind of made his name and came up on, and I get to face him in the finals and potentially beat him and hold two belts, So like I said, it doesn't get any bigger. It's the pinnacle of the sport right here, and that doesn't mean I'm done at all. It just means everything else after that, man. I just get to go out there and have fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
I don't need any motivation anyways, but what more motivation do you need than facing him and potentially becoming a 2-division champion?
And then my last question would be for you. Would you be open to Bellator in the future doing a 205-pound tournament style for maybe a number one contender, or possibly you being in the tournament for your light heavyweight title?
Yeah, like I said earlier, there's not a ton of clear-cut contenders right now. There's a couple that I have in my mind, but, it's one of those things where, I did this heavyweight. I would rather, them duke it out and get a contender out of it, and then I can face that winner, to be honest.
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.
All right. Just wanted to wrap this call up by saying thank you to all the fighters and the media that joined us today. And we will look forward to seeing you out at the forum next Saturday, January 26th. Thank you.
See you soon.
That concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect your line.